All right, let's dive in. Today, we're exploring lasers, something you specifically requested, actually.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, you sent us this audio clip, DUW laser fires, proven conclusively, again and again and again. And I got to say, the title alone kind of got us hooked. I think we're going to uncover some pretty surprising stuff.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we've got our expert here to help us sift through the facts and, the fiction.
Absolutely. This source is a goldmine of information. It really shows how lasers have gone from like science fiction to actual real world use, especially in areas where people were like really skeptical before.
So, like, straight out of sci-fi movie, this source talks about Lockheed Martin's Athena laser system. It's crazy. It's small enough to be moved around, but it took down 5 drones in, like, one test.
Yeah. And you know what's really wild about that? It means lasers could like totally change things in the real world. I mean, imagine it, right? A mobile weapon system that's super precise, can take out threats quickly and, accurately. This is like pushing us closer to a future where lasers aren't just a theory anymore. They're actually out there being used.
That's mind-blowing. And here's another thing that blew my mind. The lasers used in these things are, get this, invisible.
Yeah.
No more like those bright, colorful laser beams we saw in movies as kids.
I know, right? And the source, it describes it so vividly. It's like you just see damage suddenly starting to blow something up. Think about the advantage that gives you. Your enemy wouldn't even know what hit him.
It's like a stealth weapon, but with light.
So, okay, let's switch gears for a sec. I know you're interested in what lasers can do outside of, the battlefield.
Right.
The source talks about something called laser-induced weather control. Like using lasers to actually control rain and lightning.
Oh, yeah.
Is that even, possible? Well, it's definitely something scientists are looking into, and the source talks about how physicists are, firing trillion-watt lasers into the sky to try and influence the weather.
Whoa.
Think of it this way. These super powerful lasers can kind of create a seed up in the atmosphere, like a spot where water vapor can gather and, maybe trigger rain. It's like kickstarting the way rain forms naturally.
So not like creating storms from scratch, but more like kind of nudging existing weather in a certain direction.
Exactly.
That's incredible. It even mentions a historical example. Apparently the CIA tried using weather modification back in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how long this stuff has been around,
Yeah. But even with all that, the source does say that this technology is still, experimental. There's a lot we don't know about laser-induced weather control,
Yeah, true. It's easy to get carried away with the possibilities, but we got to stick to what we actually know.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, now let's get to the more controversial stuff about laser technology. This source really digs into it. Directed energy weapons, or DDWs. What exactly are they, and why are people freaking out about them?
Okay, so DDWs use focused energy to, achieve a specific goal. It's not just lasers, though. It includes microwaves, particle beams, all sorts of energy forms. The controversy comes from people saying these weapons are being used in ways that are, super hard to detect and even harder to prove. For example, the source mentions DWs being used to start wildfires and other destructive events.
Yeah, that's where things get a little murky.
Yeah.
The source talks about some pretty shocking stories, like people saying DWs were used in the California wildfires. They even describe an area damaged by fire with a, very defined line, which apparently suggests a laser weapon was used.
Yeah, those stories are definitely attention-grabbing. But we have to remember that just because these events happened around the same time as DDW technology was advancing, it doesn't automatically mean DWs caused them.
Right, and that's an easy trap to fall into, I think, especially with these kind of complicated and, emotional issues. We want to find explanations, we want to connect the dots and make sense of things, but we have to look at these claims critically and not just jump to conclusions.
Totally. And that's where good science comes in. If we really want to prove a connection between DWs and these events, we need more than just stories. We need real data, scientific studies, and independent confirmation to back up those claims.
So it's not about ignoring these stories entirely, but more about looking at them carefully and wanting stronger evidence, especially with claims that have, huge implications.
Exactly. And that's where things get tricky, because without that solid proof, speculation and fear can really take over, especially these days with, instant information and social media, where claims can spread like wildfire without anyone checking if they're true.
The source itself seems to reflect this tension, this struggle between wanting to believe and needing proof. It shows the bigger debate we're having about DUW is this mix of curiosity, fear, uncertainty, and the need for answers.
Yeah, I see that.
So how do we, as informed listeners, navigate all this?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll dig into more in the next part of our deep dive. We'll look at the science behind DDOWs, explore the ethical stuff, and
Hmm.
try to make sense of this, rapidly changing and often controversial field.
Yeah.
So, as we've been talking about these DDW events, I think it's easy to get caught up in all the mystery, all the speculation.
Yeah.
But we got to remember the idea behind DDWs, it all starts with real science,
Yeah.
not just sci-fi stuff.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so break it down for me. Like, how does a DUW actually work?
Okay, remember when you were a kid, you'd use a magnifying glass to focus sunlight? Make it hot enough to start a fire? DTUWs, they kind of work like that, but obviously way bigger and way more advanced. They take energy, whether it's lasers or microwaves or even particle beams, and they focus it, concentrate it to have a specific effect on a target.
So when the source talks about lasers being used to, like, start fires or mess up vehicles, that's not totally crazy talk.
No, not really. Like in theory, it could work. The hard part is controlling that much energy and aiming it precisely. Think about trying to focus a beam of sunlight strong enough to melt metal. It takes some serious tech to pull that off.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which brings us to, like, the ethical side of things with DDWs. Even if we ignore, like, the wilder claims, the tech is out there, right?
Yeah.
It's being developed. So what are the potential consequences? And how do we make sure it doesn't get used for the wrong reasons?
Yeah, those are really important questions. And they highlight why we need to be open and honest when we talk about DOWs. We got to think critically about what it means to use these powerful weapons, Like, how do we stop them from getting into the wrong hands? What are the unintended consequences? We need to be proactive about these things.
The source we're looking at, it mentions how people get scared and uncertain when new powerful tech comes along. It's like opening Pandora's box, right? Once it's out there, can we really control it?
Right. And that's why we need to be transparent, work together globally. We need to set clear rules and ethical guidelines for developing and using DEWs, just like we did with other powerful technologies like nukes.
Okay, so for our listener, the learner who's been on this deep dive with us, what's the big takeaway?
I think the most important thing is to be skeptical, but in an informed way. Know that DW tech is real and it's changing fast. But don't just believe every sensational story or conspiracy theory that comes along.
And remember, you don't need to be like a scientist or a politician to have an opinion on this. Talk about it, ask questions, and demand transparency from the people developing and using these technologies.
Exactly. The future of DWs, it depends on informed public discussion and responsible decision-making. It's not just about the tech itself. It's about how we choose to use it, what kind of world we want to live in.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
We covered so much in this deep dive, from the basics of lasers to all the ethical and social stuff around DEWs. Hopefully this has given you the knowledge and the critical thinking skills to navigate this whole thing, this fascinating world of DDWs. All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So in this final part, we're going to really get into the science and ethics of these directed energy weapons, the DDWs.
Yeah, for sure. As we've been talking about these possible DDW incidents, it's easy to get lost in all the mystery and speculation,
Right.
But we got to ground ourselves. Remember that the core idea behind DDWs is all about science, real science, not just science fiction stuff.
Totally. So, like, walk me through it. How does a DEW actually work? What's the science behind it?
Okay, so think back to when you were a kid, right? Using a magnifying glass to focus sunlight, make it hot enough to start a fire.
Oh, yeah.
DEWs, they kind of work on that same principle, but on a much, much larger scale, and obviously way more sophisticated. They harness energy, like lasers, microwaves, even particle beams, and they focus it really precisely onto a target.
Okay, so when our source mentions lasers being used to start fires or, like, disable vehicles, that's not completely out there.
No, not at all. In theory, it's definitely possible. The tricky part is, well, two things, really. One, harnessing that much energy, and then two, controlling it, aiming it accurately. It's like, imagine trying to focus a beam of sunlight strong enough to melt metal. It takes some seriously advanced tech to do that.
That makes sense. And that leads us to, I guess, the big ethical questions about DDWs. Even if we put aside some of the, more out there claims, this tech is real, right? It's being developed. So what do we do about that? How do we prevent it from being misused?
Those are the big questions, yeah. And it just highlights why we need to talk about this stuff openly and honestly, We need to really think about the implications of having weapons this powerful. How do we keep them out of the wrong hands? What are the unintended consequences? We can't just wait and see. We got to be proactive.
The source we've been looking at, it mentions the fear and uncertainty that always seems to pop up around any new powerful technology. It's like that saying, opening Pandora's box.
Yeah, right.
Once it's out there, can we really put it back in?
That's a real concern. And it's exactly why we need more transparency, more global cooperation. We need to set clear rules, ethical guidelines for developing and using these weapons, just like we've done for other powerful technologies like, nuclear weapons.
Right, right. So for our listener out there, the learner who's been following along with us, what's the main takeaway from all this?
I'd say the most important thing is to be skeptical, but like an informed skeptic.
Right.
Understand that this technology is real and it's changing fast, but don't just buy into every sensational story or conspiracy theory you hear.
And remember, you don't have to be like a scientist or a politician to have an opinion on this stuff. Talk about it, ask questions, demand transparency from the people who are, developing and using these technologies.
Absolutely. The future of DWs, it depends on all of us having these conversations, making informed decisions. It's not just about the tech itself. It's about how we choose to use it. It's about, what kind of world we want to create.
Well said. We've covered a lot in this deep dive, everything from the basics of lasers to the ethics and the big picture questions about DWs. And hopefully, you're walking away with a better understanding of this tech, the potential, and the risks. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. We'll see you next time.